wasn't exactly trying to jump on the whole P, I ain't diddly, so I resort to SA, douse you in oil, then go all puff, I'm your daddy now on your backdoor bandwagon. However, I could not pass up this opportunity to go over a topic that is shockingly not getting brought up, in his being the prime candidate for Narcissistic Psychopath of year 2024. But two is the perfect example of how these creatures go about destroying others' lives and strategically setting them up from day numero uno, with all of his secret recordings of these freaks are us getting jiggy with it in white parties that he undoubtedly recorded with the full intention of having a means of blackmail to deter others from exposing him, so that this more twisted rendition of Pulp Fiction and little Diddler pretending like he's some kind of Dirk Diggler could go on, as well as a way to throw others under the bus when this unholy ship of horrors finally began to go down. Regardless of whether or not any said person was there, due to their being just as twisted and disturbing as he was, or if he manipulated and lured them into his dungeon of unfun, then drugged them to the point where they did not know what in the fuck was going on, or have any recollection of secret tunnels, satanic rituals, or if they played 1,000 bottles of baby oil on the wall, take one down, pass it around so that the little diddler can pop it like it's hot. Because you see, regardless of what triggers these deplorable meat sacks desire to initiate the process in their totally annihilating someone's life, be that in way of revenge, or if you were merely the most convenient one to which they could pawn the blame on for their malevolent conduct. In their eyes, it's all the same and equally as justifiable to do, as it all ultimately still boils down to their sense of entitlement and keeping this fantastically delusional belief of there being the perfect combination of Nelson Mandela, James Dean, and Mother Teresa alive. Doing so without batting an eyelash or thinking twice about it, because for one, that was, after all, the whole point in the first place, but furthermore, because it makes them feel all sorts of powerful, seeing the pain and suffering growing inside of you, in the knowing that they were what caused you to suffer, having not an ounce of guilt or remorse in the things that they've done. Just like P. Diddy shit makes very clear when these reports start coming in about him. Not only did he deny every account, but to suggest that these women were just looking for some payday. And only after the video gets released of him kicking Cassie Ventura in a hallway in a hotel does he finally come forward with this BS apology that really just talked more about himself, never once even mentioning her name, because they have no guilt, remorse, or anything that they're truly sorry for. As not only do they view people as merely objects, but more so because they perceive themselves through the lens of these delusions of grandeur, on top of being egocentric, so they don't see themselves as being the problem. The blame is always projected outward, drilling this in to their victim's psyche day in and day out by gaslighting and projecting anything that they do onto them, skewing and distorting the way that their victims now perceive themselves, others, and the world. All the while, these demonic botflies are simultaneously infesting and altering the perceptions of anyone and everyone who isn't exactly buying into the BS that they're selling, and could potentially be a threat in trying to forewarn their victim that there's a strong chance he or she could be dancing with the devil, and might be wise to strap on their Nikes and get to running the F up out of there in a hotter hurry than if they were a cheetah with its ass hairs on fire. So in efforts to avoid this scenario from getting in their way of sucking the life out of their victims until they're as tapped out as an empty cask of whiskey, they begin manipulating and messing with the minds of those outside of the relationship, creating not only animosity between them so that they lose their support system, but it also creates heartbreak, upset, disappointment, and letdown to make sure that the victim becomes seen by others as the villain in this story, spreading nasty rumors, playing the victim to distort their perception of reality about what's going on, negatively impacting not only how they view this person, but as well as how they view relationships, as most of the people that these demonic clowns go after are those that they've already established trust in, their family, friends, next of kin, not to mention the spouses, children, parents, and loved ones of those that they merely set up to go down with their ship of horrors, or because they were the easiest person to dump the blame of their issues onto, that now their world becomes turned upside down as well from this domino effect that inevitably gets created. Which that right there is one of the reasons that these individuals have such a profound influence on not just those that they directly abuse, but indirectly has on society and humanity as a whole, which it helps to explain in terms of proportion to the prevalence in the population, why so many have now come forward about what they've endured, witnessed, and aren't just slapping the label on any egotistical jerk or because they're butthurt over getting their heart broken, as many of them not only could be, but legitimately are referring to the same narcissistic psychopath. The scariest part, though, is that most of the survivors wouldn't even realize it themselves due to the shady nature of their game, their habitual lying, and forever changing personas, shape-shifting themselves into whoever they need be to get whatever it is that they're after at any given moment, that may or may not include the use of aliases. So unless they were a celebrity or well-known public figure, like P. Diddy shit, or you were directly speaking to someone that you knew had their life blown to smithereens by that particular psychopath, you legitimately may not even realize that they were talking about the same person. And sadly, one of the biggest reasons that this gets overlooked is largely due to our society being in this state of crisis of the truth, or rather, I suppose, crisis of institutional authority and legitimacy that has led to the severity of their behaviors and actions to be minimized, resulting in many thinking that people are just tossing around this label, which in all fairness is far more likely to happen when only taking into consideration the prevalence amongst the population of narcissistic psychopaths, and not how many people that these individuals devastatingly impact all aspects of their lives, from their physical health, mental well-being, sense of financial security, to the way that they view others, relationships, or even their willingness to want to establish any kind of trust due to the fundamental betrayal, and everything that they once thought to be true was nothing but a giant stack of lies, one piled up on top of the next. And why it is so important to be educated about these individuals and not bury our heads in the sand, because the consequences and lingering effects of this insidious abuse, from the isolation to the daily unleashings of psychological warfare and being brainwashed into thinking that everything about it was your fault, doesn't just chip away at one's sense of self and deplete their confidence, but it too trickles out far beyond the walls and confounds of these relationships, eroding any ability or even want to trust anyone because, well, shit, you can't even trust your own judgment, coupled with being hyper alert in this constant state of fight or flight, so that the world now seeming like one ginormous threat, on top of the limited beliefs that have been ingrained into your psyche, it can pretty much go without saying that how you are going to interact with anyone that you come in contact now is going to be remarkably different. You're going to naturally build up walls because, well, you don't want to go through that kind of BS ever again, leading to the other person either feeling like you're cold and distant or getting their own complex, feeling like it's something that they're doing wrong. Why? Whether you consider yourself to be someone who has been in the ring and gone toe to toe with one of these monsters and experienced firsthand what it's like or not, does not mean that you are not reaping the consequences or the effects of their actions, nor does it mean that you have not been influenced on how you view relationships and or interact with others. Then gets exacerbated by the misconceptions, misinformation coming from figures of authority about NPD, antisocial personality disorder, and this whole viewing everything on a spectrum that has skewed our understanding and blurred the lines between what is one's character versus one's personality. But here's the thing. Up until the 1950s, the term personality disorder didn't even exist. Before the publication of the first DSM, specifically changing the categorization due to the military having a major problem with 90% of their enlisted personnel now meeting the criteria for character disorder, which was one of the terms, aside from moral insanity and psychopathy inferiority, that were originally used to describe or define what we now call personality disorders, and described as individuals who were mentally ill in a moral sense, and that these individuals could understand the difference between right and wrong, yet still acted immorally, to which is how it was described for centuries, again, up until the 1950s, and truly is not about a disordered personality with these people. It is an inherently evil character with a complete lack of morals and a total disregard from others. Period. But it really doesn't matter what we call them, because the problem isn't the label. The problem is these individuals' sense of entitlement and what they do to others. And they are not going to change because they don't see themselves as being a problem. And they are devoted to these delusions of being the MVP of mankind. And you can't help anyone who doesn't want help. And they don't. But as far as destroying you goes, they can give it their best college try. But at the end of the day, that decision comes down to you, because these individuals do not define you. They may have chipped away at your self-esteem and drug you through hell by your ankles face first. I get that. It sucks. And bouncing back from something like that is no walk in the park. But if you can get up every day and face one of these evil fuckers in the eyeballs, then you absolutely can get up every day and not. And it all starts with remembering who you are. Fight for that person. Get back the life that you were born to live, that you undoubtedly deserve. Focus on you. Fuck the narcissist, or whatever you want to call them.